Hey, back on Sports Bit, Betting Insight today, Tuesday, October 18th. Paulie and Teddy, Jimmy Vaccaro, the deep dive. Election odds, recap the weekend, how to go for the books and the players. We run it down, and Jimmy runs it down like only he can. 12-4, play of the day run. We'll get to that as well. Big game breakdown, a good one. Miami, Virginia Tech, BYU, Boise, and the Cubs and the Dodgers, Game 3, NLCS. Another primetime NFL game that was horrible and painful to watch, Teddy. Arizona and the under and a Geno Smith sighting.
Yeah, if you had the under, 6.5. Or how many passes before Geno Smith threw an INT? Yeah, you cash that. But if you're a Jets fan, if you're a Jets backer, the one guy you never want to see in a regular season game is Geno Smith on the field. And nothing against Geno Smith, but as far as NFL quarterbacks go, even backups, he's on the lower end of the pantheon. But, I mean, what do we say about the Jets right now? You know, I mean, they failed to convert on their first 8 third downs. Matt Forte, again, a complete non-factor. The third straight week, he gained just, 27 and 53 rushing yards the 2 previous weeks. I mean, right now for the Jets offense, it's Brandon Marshall, and there's absolutely nobody else who can make a play. And Arizona did something right last night. The passing game, we talked about it. Their problem for most of the season was an inability to sustain drives. It was just one downfield shot after the next. Last night, they did something they needed to do, just dink and dunk and steady drives. You know, they didn't have a pass longer than 14 yards. A big play came from David Johnson in the running game, but that worked, obviously, for Zona, and it was the strategy they needed to utilize.
Yeah, now I don't know if that'll work Sunday night at home against Seattle, but in any event, they get the win. And the Jets, would you put Geno in there?
No. I mean, look, this is not a surprise for the Jets. The media seems to be surprised. And the NFL, it's not the NFL. There's actually somebody at the individual networks' offices who are picking these games. All right? The NBC guys get to pick I believe they get first pick for the week. And then the Monday Night Football guys, the ESPN guys get the second pick. And then whoever has the game of the week in the afternoon gets the third pick. So there are people that actually get to pick these games. They're picking the wrong games. That's why ratings are down. It's not that the product stinks. It's that you have people, individual decision makers who've done the wrong thing for a lot of these contests. But, I mean, as far as the Jets, to get back on track, this is a schedule that we looked at prior to the season and say, man, this team's going to be in a world of hurt because they face elite opponent after elite opponent after elite opponent. The last month is as tough as it gets by the NFL standards. So they're pretty beat down, but that doesn't mean their season's over. You look at the back half of the schedule, and if Todd Bowles can get them up, they have a chance to at least play competitive football and get back to 500. And then you see, I mean, look what Kansas City did last year. A slow start does not necessarily mean your season is ruined.
I would bench Fitzpatrick, go to Geno, and tank and try to get one of these quarterbacks coming up in the draft. To Major League Baseball, another win for the Indians. They're 6-0 in the playoffs. In 5 of the 6 games have gone under. Bauer leaves after getting 2 outs. It was like a Halloween movie with the blood everywhere coming out of the finger after the drone accident. Then it was Miller and the bullpen again. They go for the sweep later today.
Well, I mean, what do we talk about for Cleveland? I mean, during this playoff run, and this is a run now. Once it starts, I will not step in front of Cleveland. I don't want Toronto today. If Toronto wins today, I don't want them tomorrow. Cleveland is the team that's going to win this series. And even though the money may well be in the rearview mirror for the Indians, you know, you don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive. I continue to look at Cleveland as a team that I want my money on, not one that I want my money against. And again, the price last night based on Bauer. Okay, Bauer faced 4 batters, and as you mentioned, his blood. We talked about it on the show yesterday. They were worried about him being able to do anything without blood flying everywhere, and obviously it didn't work out too well. But, I mean, the bullpen's ridiculous. You know, I mean, what did Drew Martin and I talk about at the start of the playoffs in our deep dive? Ride the hot bullpen. That's your number one postseason strategy. And obviously last night, when the starting pitcher gets 2 outs and the opposing team finishes the game with 2 runs, the bullpen's as hot as it gets. The defense for the Indians are ridiculous right now. I mean, Coco Crisp, let's be honest, that catch he made in the 7th, that saved our under, that saved the day for Cleveland. And it's been that way throughout the course of the postseason. It was that way all regular season. Defense, an underrated factor in what Cleveland is doing right now. And, of course, let's not forget that aggressiveness on the base paths. They continue to get extra bases, and that makes opposing pitchers uncomfortable.
I like what Francona's doing today, too. Go for the kill. He's throwing Kluber on short rest. Get it over with.
Yeah, I'm with you. Go for Kluber to get the closeout on Wednesday. And then, of course, if Kluber can be back for World Series Game 1, or if he needs to, he can probably go Game 7 here, if need to be, of course. And again, as you mentioned, 6% on the playoffs, 5-1 to the under. I'm not stepping in front of either one of those trends right now. Cleveland or nothing for me moving forward.
Yeah, it's Believeland now. Cavs win. They're 1 win away from the World Series. They can win this damn thing. No Salazar Carrasco. This is amazing.
That's the incredible thing about it.
Yeah.
Is the fact that they lost 2 of their 3 elite pitchers, and they're still in a position with a staff that nobody respects. And obviously, when nobody respects your starting pitching staff, that's when you're most profitable to support.
All right, some great games up next. Cubs, Dodgers, BYU, Boise State, Miami, Virginia Tech. Big game breakdown up next, coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Paulie and Teddy. Time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Later tonight, Game 3 NLCS series tied at 1. Cubs and the Dodgers. Arrieta against Rich Hill. Cubbies $1.15, 6.5 the total. The Cubs have never won a best of 7 when the series is tied at 1. 1908 for a reason. They're confident with their pitching and their defense. It's been great. Arrieta, 2 starts against the Dodgers the last 2 seasons. The no-hitter last year at Dodger Stadium. And the 7-inning shutout at Wrigley. 16 innings pitched, no runs, 2 hits, 20 strikeouts. Now the 2-15 playoffs, he carried a big load. This time only 1 start in 20 days. And I thought he pitched well against the Giants. And hey, the Cubbies need all the help they can get. Thank God their pitchers can hit.
Yeah, really. If it wasn't for the Cubs pitchers, this playoffs might have a different feel right now, because with pitchers that got a whole bunch of key hits in that series against San Fran. But, let's start with this. The Cubs 3, 4, and 5 hitters, the heart of the order. They're 6 for 60 in the playoffs. Anthony Rizzo is 1 for 23 with 6 strikeouts. And Addison Russell 1 for 22 with 3 strikeouts. That's not going to get it done. And look at this price, Paulie. Really, I thought the Cubs would come in the range of -135, -140, -145. You got the Cubs off a loss. You have Arrieta, who's shown that dominance against the Dodgers, both last year and this year. And you have Rich Hill, who we'll talk about in a minute, who hasn't been that good in the postseason. You have the public in love with Chicago. You have Chicago coming off a loss. All of these factors made me think this line's going to come higher, and yet it didn't. And it's been sitting in a lower range, and it got bet even a little bit lower yesterday. And that has everything to do with the fact that the Chicago Cubs lineup right now is real questionable, and I think the markets have their concerns about Arrieta, even though he's as rested as it gets. After he carried the load for this team last year in the postseason. This year he hasn't had to. 1 start in 20 days. We'll see if he's fresh.
Well, I got to see what Mad's made of here. Enough's enough. Shake up the lineup, for Christ's sake. You cannot play Russell. You mentioned 1 of the 22 with the strikeouts. Then he's fallen asleep on defense. He didn't cover the bag on a stolen base in the last game. You can't play these guys, and if you do, you got to move them down in the order. Baez has been terrific. Get him up in the order. And Rizzo, he's had a couple good at-bats. He almost took Kershaw deep, but when 3, 4, 5, and 6 right in a row are easy outs, you got big problems. And the pitchers have been bailing them out with how they've hit. So, Russell had 95 RBIs. He's on a milk carton in the playoffs so far. So you mentioned it too. So, man's got to mix up the lineup. Enough. So I don't care about we won 103 games. You got to do something here. Put runners in play, mix up the lineup, and do something. I would bench Russell. In any event, you mentioned Rich Hill. Hey, it was a struggle so far to get in the National Series, Teddy.
Yeah, sure. He only lasted 7 innings in a couple of starts. Gave up 5 runs, 9 hits, 4 walks. Averaged nearly 20 pitches per inning. And again, Hill was a guy who throughout the regular season were saying, man, he's overachieving. Man, he's overachieving. Wow, look what Rich Hill's doing. How is Rich Hill doing this? He may be at a guess, which is just another reason why this line should be higher, and it's not. It smells bad, I'm telling you. David Ross, 1 of 13 against Rich Hill with 8 strikeouts, and all other Cubs have only 5 career at-bats against him. So perhaps Hill has an edge in that department. He did not have that level of unfamiliarity with the Washington's Nationals lineup. They were much more familiar with Hill than Chicago is.
All right, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Thursday night doubleheader on ESPN. It starts with Miami and Virginia Tech. The Hokies at home, 5.5, 51 the total. Little early money on Virginia Tech. Chance for the nation to see Evans, one of the most underrated QBs in the nation. 1,300 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His passer rating is 7th in the nation, 171. And he can run the ball too, Teddy.
Oh, he sure can. 319 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 55-yard TD scamper. I mean, this guy has been very, very impressive running an offense that seems to be built for him. I mean, Justin Fuente's schemes were tailor-made for Gerard Evans. But, I mean, this is a guy who can legitimately perhaps be in the Heisman mix next season. The question here for Virginia Tech is not what their offense is capable of doing. It's what's the story with the defense, because the defense was on the field for 98 plays against Syracuse on Saturday. And now it's a short turnaround. So the defense was exhausted by the end of the Syracuse game, and they have less time to prep. And when you read some of the quotes following that contest, the Virginia Tech defense, was saying like the Syracuse guys were falling forward. We didn't play like we normally do. We kind of got gashed throughout the second half of that contest. Those are big concerns defensively for Virginia Tech. And, of course, they're going against a pretty good quarterback in Brad Kaya.
Yeah, Kaya played well in the win last year. They beat him at home 30-20. He was 19-30 for 296. But the offense has really struggled here. Remember, they had that 13-3 lead early on against Florida State. They did nothing till that fourth quarter touchdown, blocked extra point, and then they couldn't move the ball against North Carolina here. What's going on with the offense?
Sure. Well, North Carolina doesn't have a good defense by any stretch of the imagination. And North Carolina made about 1 million mistakes offensively. They kept on, whether it's getting stuffed on fourth down or key penalties at key times or a lot of mistakes from the Tar Heels offensively. And Miami just couldn't take advantage of it last week. As you mentioned, 19 versus Florida State, 13 versus North Carolina. The issue is the offensive line. And Mark Richt made it very clear. He's like, look, we're thin on the offensive line right now. OL injuries are hindering the development of that Miami offense. And that's why it's not emerging as a positive expectation unit right now. And, of course, Richt, he's already making excuses. Did you see that quote, Paulie? I love it. We read the quote from Manny Diaz last week talking about how Miami was already making excuses in that ball game against North Carolina. Now here's Richt making excuses this week.
When I was coaching at Georgia, our president kind of refused to ever play on a Thursday night, home or away. If there was ever a home game, because it was an on-campus stadium, you probably have to shut down school for sure, Thursday and Friday, maybe even Wednesday to get prepared. It's a new experience for me, end quote. Jesus, come on. That's ridiculous. You're right, the excuses are starting already. Game 2 of the doubleheader on ESPN, a big game, huge. BYU on the Smurf turf against Boise State 7. 57.5 the total. They're playing for that New Year's 6 game. Not going to make the playoff with their resume. But revenge from last year, the 35-21 loss. They led after the third quarter. And then a couple bombed. There was a pick 6 late after a bomb. Score was misleading as BYU got the win. And McNichols leading the way, Teddy. A fantastic running back for the Broncos.
Yeah, Boise, they have all of these chances on, I think they have 5 weeknight games. It's the Thursday game, and they have 4 other Friday games this year. They played really well on the weeknight against New Mexico a couple of weeks ago, much to my chagrin. So they're used to playing in this venue. They have to showcase to the committee. And this, I'm with you. I don't think they make a playoff, but an undefeated season is very realistic for Boise State. And you talk about that game last year. I remember I cashed a ticket on BYU in that game, and they were the right side, but Boise was leading with a minute left, ended up losing by 2 touchdowns. So there was insanity. You look at the Boise offense, Jerry McNichols, they got 775 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns. He's got 20 catches and 263 yards in the backfield, 3 TDs there. The guy can score from anywhere. It's an 80-yard touchdown run and a 60-yard touchdown pass, and I've been impressed with Brett Ripien, 9 yards per pass, 12 touchdowns, only 3 INTs this season. The Boise offense has been pretty good.
But they've been running out of gas. Well, I don't want to say that. They haven't been able to finish games, especially at home. And last year, BYU didn't have Hill or Williams in that game. And we've been telling you on SportsBet that Sataki Said these guys were built to play to the end, and they were built for these grueling games in this tough schedule. BYU second half, last two games, 21-7 over Miss State, 28-8 over Michigan State, plus 45 in the fourth quarter and overtime this season, despite playing the toughest schedule in the country. And then you have Boise. They almost blew a 28-3 lead late against Colorado State. They didn't finish against Utah State. And there was, I'm blanking, there was another game they played where they let the team back in as well. So these are Washington State. Yeah, Washington State came in the back door. They almost blew a big lead in that game too.
Sure. Boise's not. I'm with you in the concept here that Boise's not a team that I want to lay a touchdown with in this ball game, especially because that toughness for BYU might matter even more on a short week. My only concern, my biggest concern for BYU here is they've got the bye coming up. Boise's used to playing the weeknight games. If BYU falls behind, I worry about them being able to find that last bit of energy before that bye week. But if they don't fall behind, they're live to win this game. They beat this team last year.
Yes, all good points there. Up next, the deep dive. Jimmy Vaccaro, how'd the books do, how'd the players do, and this close to the Las Vegas Raiders. What will that mean for sports betting? That's next on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Do your research before you bet. Check out our ratings guide to see which books have the best ratings and sign-up bonuses. Open up several accounts and shop for lines at SBRodds.com. Always be ahead of the game.
All right, every Tuesday, it's Deep Dive with Jimmy Vaccaro, bookmaker for over 40 years. If you're ever in Las Vegas, stop in and see him at the South Point and follow him on Twitter at Jimmy Vaccaro. The Alabama freight train rolls on, Jimmy. You got some professional money, little buyback on Tennessee late, but I mean, Alabama's playing a top 10 team Saturday. They're laying 17.
Well, I keep increasing their power rating. Obviously, after seeing with some degree Ohio State getting behind Clemson, almost losing the football game, both teams going to overtime, and you saw that they were ranked 2 and 3 before the week started. And just throwing this around to people who I obviously respect. Going back about a week or two, we were talking about what Alabama on a neutral would be, both against Ohio State and Clemson, and that number has changed. We talked about anywhere between 4.5 and 6. I think that number reaches the minimum, starts at 7.5 or 8 if it comes to that point, because this team is just a machine right now. They just don't seem to have any trouble and score at will and naturally turn up the heat when they want. So we are seeing something we haven't seen in quite a while, where there's such a clear-cut favorite. Yes, we understand football is a relatively crazy game and things can happen. But if Ohio State or Clemson played Alabama 100 times, it's going to be at least 80 wins for this team right now to have on the field. And it's incredible. I mean, Urban Meyer loses all those players last year, and this year's team is better than last year's team. The Alabama side. So it's just incredible. I don't know where it comes from, but they're just a great, great team. We haven't seen something like this in quite a while.
Yeah, Saban has all that talent. And 9 straight games with a defensive or special teams touchdown. How'd Saturday go?
Saturday was good. We would consider it like a little above average. We always talk about, here it is, football in October doesn't get much better, and more people keep showing up. I hate to sound like an old record, people out there listening, but the only thing I can keep telling you is that they keep coming. And when you get the Saturday games and split up perfect, some decent games at 9, 12:30, 4:30, and 7:30, you can't beat it, because it's just simply a churn that you've never seen in any other sport, other than maybe the Thursday and Friday of March Madness. I will take the numbers we did on Saturday for the remaining Saturdays that we have, but I can't tell you. A few games moved 3 or 4 points, and we won half of them, lost half of them, which means that's the best tonic we can get here as bookmakers. As long as it's split down the middle and you're writing a lot of money, you'll end up on the plus side no matter what happens.
I imagine the Steeler game was a Scoop Jackson, money line parlays, teasers, parlay cards, all out.
Biggest game of the year so far with the NFL concerned. When you beat a team like that, and as I've said a million times, if you get one of those early out of the block at 10 o'clock our time, doesn't necessarily guarantee you 100% you're going to win, but it surely makes it a lot easier for the course of the day. I don't know, different Miami teams showed up, and make no mistake about it, and it looked like it was going to be the same same old as the kid scored the 60-yard run early in the game. And there was a lot of straight money from the smarts on the dog there too. But obviously, they did okay. But we simply were just overpowered, especially with money line and teaser bets. And it was the biggest game of the day and set the tone for us for the rest of the day.
What was a bad result for you yesterday or Sunday?
The bad result is not that, well, it all come down to the last game falling 3. I mean, we could go and we won half the games early, we lost half the games early, but when everything was funneled in there, we were doing pretty good because we obviously, the Eagles, maybe they were finally exposed. A team that opened as a small dog closed as a 3-point favorite. That was a very, very big game for us also. And so when you have these things, and it's obviously you just want them to break even. The Packer game, the smarts all during the week were all over the Dallas Cowboys, who are emerging again. I won't put the label America's team on them yet, but if these two youngsters keep playing the way that they are, you'll get an extra 10 to 15% of money on the Cowboys every week because maybe they are coming back with this. So a lot of money early, but overwhelmed with Packer money late. And Rodgers just didn't look like the same. And that game, we were as low as 3.5, but we closed the game 5.5, blinked 6 for a little bit. There was a little bit buyback there. So that was another great game. But we surely gave probably about 15 to 20% back when the Houston game fell 3 in a crazy way that it fell. Is just unbelievable. And we opened the game 2.5, took a lot of minus 2.5, went to 3 during the week, was pounded all day early Sunday. So we even went to 3.5 a little bit in the buyback there, and you saw with the final that wasn't any good, but it surely was crazy.
Something that can only help getting sports betting legalized. How about the Governor Sandoval and Mark Davis signed the bill? They're going to get the new stadium in Las Vegas. The owners will vote on it January 15th. We are this close to the Raiders moving to Las Vegas.
Well, I think we're past the 40-yard line, kid. We're going downhill now. So I think if we can just keep it clean and, have a few blocks here and there to protect the quarterback, it's going to be a reality. And I believe everybody will be satisfied. We understand that there's political things behind it. We understand we may have to pay a little bit more out of our little paycheck. But I just believe in the long run, it's such a windfall for the whole Southern Nevada. It's just incredible. I've been saying it for a few years, plus a million other people have been saying it also. The time has come, and what this will do also, this opens up everything else. You'll absolutely see an NBA team here quickly because it does take all the craziness to set up a huge stadium for the NBA. I would say that they'll come 18 months after everything is said and done. I believe we'll have an NBA team, NHL team, and naturally with the crown jewel would be the NFL team, which will just increase everything that we do here. Good for you, good for me, good for everybody here who lives and works in Las Vegas.
The debate Wednesday in Las Vegas, how many interviews will you do?
I just got called from an outfit called Vice Magazine. They're flying in. They want to do something early. USA Today, I got to do something around 3:30. I was asked to be on Hardball with Chris Matthews the day of the debate. Now, that's going to be a pain in the butt because I get security to drive me down there. Thomas and Mac will be jammed, and they want me there before the debate and talk a little bit after the debate. So, but it's worthwhile. Even though we can't bet on it, the publicity that, first of all, not because it's me, but any publicity that we get with Las Vegas' name attached to it cannot hurt. And we have Trump now up as a 6-1 underdog who was almost picked him about 3 months ago with the convention, but obviously he stepped in a lot of bear traps in the last 45 days.
I know it infuriates you that outside of the United States, it's the second biggest betting day on our election. And what would happen if we could bet on the election?
Well, first of all, it would be the biggest event that we booked for the entire year. It would make Super Bowl, obviously, small in comparison for one big reason, Paulie. First of all, you can put up at any time for the next election, in the election in 2020, you could just put up Democratic Party, Republican Party. It'd be taking bets for 4 years. So you would obviously have 4 years to have money just keep mounting and mounting and mounting. Why it's done, I know the reason it is because the federal law there, and the federal law is still controlled by people. I hate to say it's people my age, the antiquated people. And once they're gone and out of the way, the younger kids who in 10 years will be the congressmen and who will be the people who can change these laws, I think, and there. Not until then. They're staunchy old men who will not budge, and it's going to be a hard time to get them off their hot seat until they're basically gone.
Give them hell Wednesday. Thanks for 5 great minutes.
Hey, Sportsbook viewers, tune in to today's MLB Odds Couple show for Tuesday, October 18th. These MLB playoff lines are tough, but, Mike Brenner, there can be edges that can be found. Mike Brenner and I do our best to try to break it down and figure out what those are, right, Mike Brenner?
Yes, we do. And Pistol Pete, you got the best advice. Baseball playoffs, sometimes a 10-foot pole. But you know what? I feel something today with them Cubbies, so come on over and check out our picks.
Excellent job. Great talking to Jimmy every Tuesday in the deep dive. And look for him coming up in Hardball with Chris Matthews. 12-4 run with the play of the day. Winner yesterday with the Blue Jays-Indians game under. And we're going back to football. 21-9-1 on the football season. Where are we going, Teddy?
Let's go to Thursday night, part of that ESPN doubleheader, and take a look at game number 307. That is the Brigham Young University Cougars plus the 7. BYU, one of the toughest teams in the nation. Jamal Williams, one of the toughest runners. Think can wear down that Boise State defense that comes in tired. A defense that, or a running back that has 942 yards and 10 touchdowns already versus a big-time schedule. BYU plus the 7. That's our play of the day. It's a line I'm not convinced is going to be here by tomorrow at this time.
Yes, excellent. Tomorrow, market moves, injuries in the NFL, big game breakdown, football, and MLB playoffs. We'll talk to you then on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.